So I have to, can I introduce you from the background a little bit? Because Ayumi, when I,
So much fun.
even before I got involved in the festival in 2013, 2014, I had started a new music publishing company that was meant to be a nonprofit publisher to support living composers in various ways.
Yay.
And I had found Ayumi just online during that time. So she was one of our first composers on the Abundant Silence roster, and I was so drawn to her in part because of what she is presenting about today, how she weaves narrative into her composition process and her compositions. So really excited for this. Ayumi Okada.
Thank you so much, Luke. Luke, could you open your computer for me? So
Gosh.
it's just
Sorry,
down and only he can open it.
Highly secure computer here.
Yes. Maybe I failed too many times. Okay. All right. So, telling a story through music has been my utmost inspiration on composition. When I started composition, my teacher let me come up with a musical idea, and then I was so excited and explored certain things. And when I learned the chord, like the basic four qualities, major, minor, diminished, augmented, and then I saw the facial expression of each, like major, fine, just fine. Something is not quite right or sad, and even concerning, and then wonder. So I thought maybe once I learn all the chords, maybe I can speak in music. That thought really excited me. So since then, storytelling has been really an inspiration to me. And then I write, as Luke introduced to me so kindly, I write a lot of chamber music inspired by stories. Sometimes I take the literature story, and sometimes I make up. And then also I write for musical theater. So today I'd like to explore the storytelling and music. So I was drawn to story, but it's not just me, but many composers and musicians are drawn to telling the story through music. So I'd like to start from the beginning through now in 4 sections. So thank you for being here. All right, so let's start with the first one, the painting with sound. So, I had a wonderful conversation with Winna last night about how we started composition, and then would you mind sharing what you did with your mom on piano?
Sure. We were talking about what got us to become ultimately composers, and I was telling her that it was because my mom was not a musician, but when I was just 2 or 3 years old, we had a piano. So she would call me over to the piano and say, you be a bird, and I'm going to chase you. I'm going to get a cat, and I'm going to chase you. And so we would play at the piano, and so I learned that the piano was a toy.
Yes.
And that's why I'm a composer.
Yes, yes. I think it's every composer's beginning, and then all the music history's beginning, the relationship with storytelling, because painting the scenery or character with sound I think it's the beginning of storytelling, the first idea of doing it. So I'm gonna share 3 examples, piano pieces, all about water. And then I want you to listen to what kind of water you're hearing. These are the famous pieces, so you probably recognize, but really focus on the sound and then try to imagine what kind of form of the water is and how the movement goes. So the first example. Okay, so that's first example of water sound. We're going to discuss after we hear all the three. Let's move on to the next. All right, so that was the second one, and then let's do the third one. All right, so if you have any imagery that inspired you, or if you know that piece, feel free to let me know. Any of the 1, 2, 3.
Well, I guess I will because I've played them all. The first one, obviously, water, and Debussy was just enthralled with water. It's in almost all his pieces. And that leads me to the third one, which I really hate the name Raindrop Prelude.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think they are raindrops. I do not feel that. I think it's more like a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish they would get rid of that title.
Also
Yeah.
Chopin's.
Yeah.
He did all
No,
that.
oh, no, he
Yeah.
didn't do it, of course not.
Yeah,
because
it's a nickname
some
more
editor,
like.
You know, a guy that just sells pianos did it. So, the second one, is a chase. You know,
Yes,
Like
wonderful.
swirls.
Yeah, it was very busy. Thank you.
I tried to get rid of my memory of it
Yes.
and just listen to music. And the first one, I felt the bubbling of moving up
Mm,
in fountains, and then the second one, I felt like the swooshing down
right.
of a river over rocks and boulders. And then the third one felt like a still lake. I don't know.
That's wonderful imagery. I love all this.
You're right about
fresh-
the still lake. A great description. It's like Liz Lane,
Yes.
I just butchered that name.
Nice.
It's the same feeling, yes.
Right.
Stillness.
Martha.
The first one, I just told Lynette, I said, you know, I love Debussy. I love Debussy. I think I compose like Debussy, but my ears are tired of Debussy. You know, horror.
That's Ravel.
I know, but I heard the Debussy. I heard the Debussy, and I thought, oh yeah, I like Debussy.
Yes.
You know, but the third one, the Raindrop Prelude, amongst teachers, sometimes we call that the water torture prelude. Because after you've, you know, adjudicated or examined, people playing it so much and not well, it's, you know, you can imagine. I won't get into it, but it just those three pieces, they're just so such interesting choices because they are so. I don't know. Before they were here, we didn't have those emotional reactions to that
Mhm.
because it didn't exist. And now that they've been created, they're like some kind of living thing. Those little pieces have that incredible effect on us. Just to hear the opening, it's like
Right.
you know, it's so neat.
Exactly. Thank you so much for all the thoughts. It's wonderful to see these famous pieces in a new way. So first two pieces are titled by the composers, but the third one is a nickname. People were inspired listening to it, associated with raindrops. So the first one is called Water Game. So playfulness. And then the second one is Gardens in the Rain. So it's the rain in the gardens. So the second and third are both rains, but still very different emotion around the rain. But still we can feel, if we hear this piece is something about water, we are convinced. No, it's not, it's fire. You wouldn't think that way, I think. I think it's possible, but somehow it feels so right. It's the water. The music is depicting something inspiring, depicting water. So, and I find that lots of water-related pieces. So the movement and then the flexibility might be a good imagination, inspiration for sound to paint the scenery with music. And then other inspiration I found few example of is actually, it's still nature, but very different from water, insects. So let's go with the most famous one, I think, and it could be loud. Yes. So let's make sure it's not too loud. We're gonna start quieter and then adjust. And it's okay, so it's Bumblebee, but I didn't know about much about this piece until I was preparing for this workshop. I thought it's just depicting Bumblebee, but there was a story around it. It's coming from opera, so it's the prince who turned into Bumblebee, and then he's frantically looking for his father as a bumblebee. So the story is around, it's human, but in the form of bumblebee. So the story was even more interesting than I thought. But for the sake of the discussion, let's keep it the insect section. And then I want you to think of what this piece, this was also just written as a etude, but people associated this certain insect. So please listen and think about what that is. All right. Any idea?
Hummingbird, maybe.
I thought a hummingbird, but that's a bird.
Right, it's insect.
Oh, darn.
You-
Okay. Well,
Ah, that's a nice. I think it's closer.
Yeah.
I mean, mosquito. That's
Yeah,
right.
there
It's
it
the
is.
same like this kind of things, but the movement really picks. I mean, scribing didn't really intend to, but it's really associatable. So bumblebee, insects, music can tell the difference, which I was so amazed. So that way, the painting with sound called tone painting was the pieces we saw is like rather recent romantic period, but it started in the Renaissance, the sources. So it means that composers are continue to be fascinated by the painting with the sound. So it's the one category in storytelling through music. Okay. So I have the first page of each piece I presented today. So if you're interested, I can show you how it looks like. I mean, this one is right there. But if you have time to sit with piano and then really observe it, what makes this sound more like insect-like and particularly bumblebee, I think it's really interesting and inspiring. Yeah, trilling, yes. And then the way trill is grouped together and then not just consistent, but sometimes turn into eighth, the changing rhythm, the detail makes the imagery very vivid. All right, so let me move on to the next category. So the second one is structure a story. So let's step aside from music a little bit and then think about the story. Good story, satisfying story has one thing in common, in my opinion. Do you have any idea what that could be? I mean, it could be many things, but a more foundational part.
An arc,
Yes,
a beginning, a middle, and an end.
exactly. So let me experiment this using, I'm gonna make up a story using this prompt. Okay, cat is sleeping. This is lovely, but this is not a story yet. It's the state. Okay, something has to happen to be a story. So let's see. She hears some noise. She wakes up. And then what happens next? We expect. Ignores and then go back to sleep. That is a story. But it's a very much cat-like story. But it's not so satisfying. We expected more. So let's start over again. Cat is sleeping and then hears noise and then wakes up and then find out her younger brother is chased by a bully cat, bigger cat. So she jumps up and rushes to the scene and then scare the bully away and then come back. Scare him away. I didn't have a cat fighting picture, so this is the most silly one I got. Okay, and then go back to sleep. Now we have some arc. So beginning and middle, and then some conflict and drama peak, and then come back to the more stable place. So that's the essence of the story. And then it feels a little bit familiar to you who are very familiar with music forms. Like the base, I think most basic form is AB and ABA, like ternary form. 3 sections, the middle section being the contrast to the beginning and end. And then more elaborate one is the sonata form. Let's take a look at sonata form, how it goes. I borrowed this from the website that is listed below. So it starts from the exposition. Cat is sleeping around here and hears the noise and then wakes up and then jumps up and then cat punch or like meow. Yeah, all the all the kinds of things to scare the bully away, and then making sure the younger brother is doing fine, and this time she goes back to sleep. So sonata form is a wonderful formula for the storytelling. So let me share like sonatina, and then we could feel how it feels like in the music. I chose Clementi's 6 sonatas, the first one. Okay, so this is exposition. Up to here is the first theme, being bridging into the second theme. So now we are in G major. We started out C major, but we modulated. So we're already in the new place. Probably the cat is arrived on the scene. And then we're gonna go to the short development, this section. So mixing up the first theme and second theme, sometimes make it fragment, sometimes elongate. Not so much happening here, but we can see being coming from, and then coming from. So now put together. So we went back to the first theme, but this time we didn't modulate, so we stay in the key. So we had a nice arc, and then we don't know exactly what happened narrative-wise. If the protagonist is dog, panda, we don't know. But we felt the story somehow, the emotion, changing emotion. So structure can tell the story. So even though it doesn't necessarily always narrative story, but I wonder if you can come up with a story to this particular thing. It might help you to feel more engaged with the material more. So it might be fun to think about your own story to these sonatas, sonatinas, as you play these pieces. Okay, thank you. I think that's the second category. And
I like your cat story.
thank you.
I was hearing the cat punching in the Yeah, I liked your story.
Thank you.
I think it's also very interesting that as soon as you mention and give me imagery,
Mm.
I try somehow to attach the imagery to whatever is being played. And so if you had told me it was another kind of dramaticity, my brain would try to associate what speaks to the open-endedness of music, right?
Yes.
And to our ability to kind of, imagine things.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
So I really appreciate the imagery because it does give me, something to cling to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's what I normally tell the kids. If you go to a museum, if you go to a concert, you are responsible for making imagery. Right? You
right.
bringing your own thoughts. Sometimes it won't be provided.
Right, that's true. We have to come up with our
I won't
own.
be there to tell you about the cat.
Right.
I have a new kitten.
Ah.
What could have happened in the middle, I can send you pictures, well, actually, I have a picture, but my cat caught a snake. And my cat also, caught a mole. If I get a fighting cat picture, I'll send it to you.
Great. Next workshop, they're gonna be on the. Yes, and obviously I love cats, so naturally chose the protagonist. Thank you so much. So let's move on to the third. By the way, sonata form established around 18th century, so we're progressing in time. So now, next one up is music with meaning. So let me use my piece as an example, and this piece is called Capricious March, which is, yes, Daniel is going to play at his Saturday concert. I'm very, very excited. The reason why I chose this piece is that I tried to make this piece speak for itself by assigning role to some musical motif. So let me share the beginning of the piece. So this piece is, the setup for this piece is that it's based on my experience, grew up in Japan. And as a kid, we went to school on kids' own, not accompanied by any adult. So just walk to school with friends or take bus or a subway to go to now I live here for more than 15 years. It feels like, are they okay? But in there, they're somehow okay. People around you, adults around them, kind of look after them, even though they don't know these particular kids. They kind of make sure they're okay. So we used to walk to school on our own. But sure, we're kids, so we are curious with things, and we get distracted with random thing we encounter on the way to school. So it's about these kids. So Capricious March starts with this figure. Sorry. So this left hand obviously march, and the right hand. Kids are now briskly walking to school. Now in good pace, they're focused and moving along, and then what do you think has happened here?
They get distracted and they see something and they go do it.
Exactly. Thank you, thank you. So here I try to depict water. So this left hand, they jumped into the puddle. And then this blur is a ripple. And they're like jumping in and enjoying the feeling and then the scenery of it, distracted for 3 measures. And then they're gonna keep going with kicking the water to each other section afterward. But it's gonna be a Saturday thing to be revealed. But later, they encounter something else. So this is just before the encounter, and I'm okay. Then so they encounter something and now chasing. What do you think they're chasing?
Time.
Oh, that's very deep. I love that, but I wasn't thinking that deep here.
That's awesome.
This is more like lively stuff. They could encounter on the way. It's not the city. It's more like in the nature. They're walking through the forest or something, a tree. So it's a living thing. And then
In Vermont, I feel like I'm being chased by a black fly.
That's good.
Yes. A duck or a squirrel?
Smaller. Actually, this is my kind of cue. Does this come across with the sound that the small thing makes? Ribbit? So this is like they're trying to catch the frog, and they can catch it or they can go to school on time. Is up to Daniel on Saturday. So in here, I loosely, it's not really strictly, but this figure is chasing. This is ribbit, and then whenever you hear this, kids trying to get focused again and to go to school, but distracted with another theme. So I wanted to play with this theme. So that's the third category. Where's my iPad? Oh yeah, here. And do you know, I mean, if you could help me, like, what this type of usage of music, what do we call it in terms, composition term? Like, it was mostly advanced at opera field. Yeah, close. Yeah, leitmotif. So assigning the meaning to certain melody or timbre so that they can, music can really differentiate character or action by just the sound without using the words. So it was mostly developed by Wagner, 19th century opera. But after developed that in opera field, it was expanded into film score. Like if you hear this. If you know the movie, you instantly it's Darth Vader's theme. So movie, especially Star Wars, really used leitmotif so heavily throughout the trilogy, more than that. So movie uses that. But not only movie, but it's also expanded into musical theater as well. So I start with my small example, assigning the idea to the small passage, and then now the piece represents character. But leitmotif can help the structure of the bigger thing. Whole entire musical could be held together by using leitmotif cleverly. So the next example, is from Stephen Sondheim, Merrily We Roll Along. How many of you know that? Okay, wonderful, that's wonderful. So the show is tricky. The story is not tricky, but the way it's told is tricky because it's told backwards. Start from the present and then going back to the earlier time when it's about three best friends, very talented artistic friends. They started out very hopeful about their future and their friendship, but ended up as they success more in the field, their friendship somehow couldn't survive and then end up with breaking up. They go on their own. But they start from the very bottom and then going backwards. So the story feels like lighting up, but we know how they're going to end up. So we feel very difficult about watching them being hopeful. But it's difficult to communicate with audience as a composer because we have to do so many housekeeping to keep people engaged. So Sondheim used this one song that's the main song, Merrily We Roll Along. So this song is used so many times as a transition. As they move through the time, they say which year it is and then ask us question, how did we get here? So that way we can remind it and reset and then ready for the next watching the time, certain time period of their friendship. So let's just listen to it. Yes, and then it's the next song. But that way, transition always happen this way, so we can be, we don't get lost. So, and then somebody very smart and patient really made the chart. I mean, in here, right corner, the person's name here. So if you're interested, I'll let you know the name so you can go to the source. But it's showing how this side says the music and lyrics connected. And then the second one is only music connected. And the third one is the connecting, it will help me song. Yes, the key melody that is connecting the idea. So this I feel like the big picture way of using leitmotif to hold a even bigger storytelling together. So now we got to the musical theater, which I love. And the musical theater is made up of each song to create a bigger arc. But the song itself has a little arc. So let's talk about this as a next category. When music reveals what words can't. So we're going to listen to another examples in that. Okay, so in a moment, but what does it mean when music reveals what words can't? So let's think about this very common expression, of course. We can say of course in various ways. If someone asks you something and you're willing to do that, of course you say it. And if someone forgets something and asks you to borrow your thing, and then it's the third time today, and then you're so tired, of course. Very different, but it's the same words. So I changed the tone and then my entire feeling toward this, so it naturally shows differently. So if music does that, and then while word stays, so the gap, when the gap is bigger, there's a subtext. So text is the word. Subtext is the hidden meaning underneath, the actual feeling when the person is saying it. In musical theater song, usually the song has a subtext, even though sometimes very subtle. Usually we have it. So let's listen to two examples. But before that, let's see the excerpt of the lyrics. If I loved you, time and again I would try to say, all I'd want you to know. And it keeps going. So we didn't see if I loved you, time and again I would try to say, all I'd want you to know. I mean, it's still hypothetical, but it's kind of obvious this person is in love. But if I loved you, there's some hesitation to really say I love you yet. So we can see that from text already, but if we hear the song, you definitely know that this person is in love. So let's hear it. So this is If I Loved You from Carousel by Rogers and Hammerstein. And then this is called, in musical theater term, it's called almost love song. It is essentially love song, but almost, not straightforward love song. And then they invented this way. Usually in technical term, in musical theater, this almost love song is sung in early on, but the audience is not ready. They just met the characters, so we can't really have the love song yet. But almost love song is great. We can inform the audience that they're in love, but without telling them. So it's a wonderful device to do that very complex thing in one way. So the next thing is kind of opposite. So let's see the lyrics first.
It is interesting how the harmonies and the melody
Mhm.
she sings the first words.
Right,
There's that kind of doubt.
right, exactly. Some
Both
pensiveness.
descending.
Right, yes. So the music really is telling you how it feels. And then this is very different. I don't care about expensive things, cashmere coats, diamond rings, don't mean a thing. All I care about is love. If a great actor says in a sincere way, you would believe it, you could believe it. But if we hear it, not sure.
I don't care about expensive things, cashmere coats, diamond rings, don't mean a thing. All I care about is love. That's what I'm here for. I don't care for wearing silk cravats, ruby studs, satin spats, don't mean a thing. All I care about is love.
I don't
What-
trust that.
Right, your instincts is right. So this is from Chicago, musical Chicago, and he is a lawyer who defend criminal, people. And then he is so good or so smart and so smooth, so he can make black white, white black. So he has a power, and he loves money, obviously, but he don't want to say it straightforward. No, I don't care money. I just need love. But obviously not. So it's the opposite way of using, opposite, but essentially music is telling the truth, while the words can say either way. Yes, so that's I found the most fascinating about the musical theater writing. I never really thought about it, that music can't lie. It's obviously true, but wow. And then words can. And then combining them makes us feel like so engaging and in a different way. So yeah, so this I felt like that. Oh, this is the fourth category of storytelling through music. I said musical theater songs usually have subtext, but there's a certain moment we don't, or very subtle, is when we want to give the information to the audience, like opening number. We want to introduce characters and the world, so there's no subtext, it's information. Or the moment that character is really sincere and vulnerable, straightforward. But because other songs are usually having the subtext, when they music and the words match, that's also strong. So play with this balance between text and subtext is very interesting to me in the way how musical theater does it. Yes, I'm not. Yes, and then my mentor in musical theater writing told this, and then it stuck with me. Music is a lie detector. So when you see musical next time, listen for it, and then if you feel like I'm not buying this character saying, and listen for music, you know the truth. So I thought it's really fascinating. Okay, so let's recap. 4 ways music tells stories. The first one was tone painting, scenes painted with sound, and then the second one, structure, sonata form. We dived into emotional arcs through form. And the third one, leitmotif, meaning embedded in the melody. And the last one, music and words, revealing what words alone can't. So I feel like these 4 categories, music is still created at this moment. Some started earlier, some started later, but still all of them exist in newer form. And I wonder, would there be next category coming up in any way? I'm very curious. So if any of you come up with the idea, let me know. I'd love to know. Thank you so much. That was my 4 categories. Thanks so much. I just love story.
Does anybody have questions for anything?
I do. So one of the hard things I think about composition is, for me at least, not the spark of the story and not even the structuring of what I want to do, is that going back the next day and the next day and actually getting back to a mind frame where I can develop that idea and make it consistent.
Right.
How do you normally operate in terms of, how long do you take to write a piece like Caprice March, for example, and how does that, affect you? Do you leave pieces unfinished for 10 years, or do you?
Thank you. That's an amazing question. For Capricious March, I stayed in within a month, because it's short piece. But when I started writing the piece, I didn't have the whole story yet. So as I write, I came up with the story, development part. How can I land in a way that is satisfying and then also interesting? So I couldn't come up with the frog idea until later. So that made the climax. So I'm glad that I came up with. It was a short piece, and then it's a playful piece. It's fun to be in the zone. But I also wrote about the story inspired by George MacDonald's story, Wolf. It's about the werewolf. And then she loves this young man, but at night she turns into wolf. So she can be together. And then it ends up in a dark ending, a rather sad one. And then I wrote chamber music for that. And while I was in there, I was so struggling. I want to get away from this world as soon as possible. But I need to do justice for the character. I need to go deep down to really give voice to these characters' emotion. So I needed to stay there for a while. So that was hard. So I hear you.
Yes. So my question is almost the opposite of what he asked. How about not having any story.
Uh-huh.
Like, just because when we compose,
Yes.
sometimes I always feel like you create a problem and then you have to find a solution for that problem.
Yes.
So, I don't know if problem is the word, but you know, we have to find a way to figure out the next. So, in this process, it's only the music. Do you also use this kind of process?
Yes. Until some point in my writing career, I didn't realize that story is that important to me in composition. So I tried to write music guided by sound,
Yeah.
but I struggled so much. And then at some point I noticed if I had story as a guideline for the piece, I can write, but otherwise I don't know how to do it. So I think it really depends on the composers, but I'm the type of person who needs a narrative for piece.
That's the inspiration and the formula.
Right, right. Luke, did you have?
Yeah, I was curious. You showed the the visual of from Mary from.
Oh yes.
Yes. Like I'm curious, especially in your music theater writing or other writing.
Mhm.
Do you use do you lay out in that way as part of your composition process? And if so, is there like a point in your process where it like really helps you to lay out that visual?
Right. Yes. Not that meticulous way that Sondheim did with that show, but usually musical has a couple of reprises of the piece. The song sung earlier comes back later, usually shorter, to remind the emotion or the event happened over there, or give a twist. So they pair by having that short reprise that makes it tie events together. So that I think all the musical theater composers have in mind and then keep track of. Because it's very effective technique. You want to use it to help the story move forward in a more cohesive way.
Yeah, and you collaborate with lyricists and
Right.
all sorts of people in musical theater, right? So
Yes.
do you ever like look at that visual together, like as you're
Ah,
mapping out like time and
yes.
transitions and
So sometimes if the composer come up with the musical idea that can tie the story together, let the lyricist know, I want to use this over and over again as this meaning or as this kind of device and connecting narrative device. Or the lyricist has the idea, like we have this lyric here and then it comes back as a reprise in here in the story. So I think it's both ways. But usually I'm excited we have more of these because it feels like, oh, we found the puzzle and then solved the puzzle and then it's exciting.
I'll just say that it's funny because I don't write storytelling as I compose. It's about sound and about, it's just like I'm an adventurer in the woods. I don't know what's coming. I'm always surprised as much as I don't know how the story's going. I don't have a story, but lately in the last few years, I've been getting more and more requests for pieces. I need a piece for this, or I need a piece for that, and the writing is so much faster with the limited parameters of
Right.
a storyline or thematic or something like that, and so it's interesting. Because when Ann and I were doing, we did this collaborative thing last year, on prehistoric piano, all is prehistoric. And it was so much fun because normally when I start to write something, I just have some amorphous sound in my head or rhythm, and it was so fun having, she's so organized. She had, okay, here we're gonna need some kind of animal, some kind of land, some kind of, and then the next we're gonna do this and that. And I said, oh, okay. And it was just so
Bossy Rossi.
Yeah, bossy. and it was so efficient. It was fun. It was different for me because I tend to be all imagination and inspiration, and not a lot of organization and whatever.
So it's more like film composing.
Ah,
Yeah, right.
I see.
Yeah, so really fun.
it's
we
really
have to have a
interesting.
presentation next year on prehistoric piano.
Oh, my God. It's
Can't
really
wait.
interesting because I was practicing your fish song, the fish out of the water, and it's really interesting because the title itself gave me a lot of insight on what happens at the end and how I was going to pedal and how dry I wanted to sound and how kind of tragic I wanted to sound. So it completely changed my the techniques I was going to use, right? The title, so it having the images of the composer doesn't necessarily keep me on that, on a box. I will go far away sometimes, and sometimes even do the opposite of what the composer is thinking about, if it really speaks to me. But it gives me guardrails to kind of make informed decisions at first, right? And then later on, if I talk to the composer, and now I know it's a frog. Now I don't know, because I was thinking it was time as well. They
Oh,
were hunting
wow.
time.
Yeah, me too, that's right.
Although by the end of the piece, they will be hunting time, right? I know that.
Right.
But at first I didn't know it was the frog, so now it's already changed.
Okay.
Right? Now the articulation is going to be a little different. So I do appreciate a lot.
Thank you.
As much information you give about the process on the score and etc. online, telling about the piece, we really take the cue from composers.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your being positive about me giving out that information that laid out the process for
It
you.
helps a lot, yeah.
Thank you.
And I didn't have the title, I think that was Luke's title.
That was another work
Oh.
he commissioned inspired by a painting, inspired by a watercolor painting of a fish,
Oh.
and then Martha took the inspiration from that painting.
Oh, so there is so I want to see the painting now. See, now,
It's in
now,
my studio.
yeah, now I want to see the painting, so then I can make a correlation with the title, right? And
Change
make-
everything
and
for Saturday.
Change everything.
This is an excellent time because I think, isn't that your composition quick starts?
Yes, the something's very
Yes,
good.
okay, so I'm gonna bring in, Martha made some quick starts to help people get started with a composition based off of the same visual inspiration. So I'll make sure I have those for tomorrow.
Awesome.
So folks.
I will try. I'll see if I can edit to Saturday. If I have time to practice, I will.
Oh, nice.
See how it goes.
And I'll just say about the prehistoric piano is that I did Hibby the shark, and all I could think about was something's fishy. And I had all those quick starts for the students, like water, and, fish and all that. And so Hibby I stole it from one of my quick starts. I couldn't help myself. So anyway, it's just interesting how the brain works, Yeah. Thanks, Luke.
And all these thoughts are pour into what I'm going to talk about on Saturday about the power of limitations. So
That's great.
yeah.
Yes, I mean, I was so inspired by Brendan's yesterday's. Otherwise, the music section, the fourth section, didn't exist. So thanks to Brendan, I thought about I'd like to incorporate this into this. So I feel like creativity is sparking during this week as well already.
All right, thank you, Ayumi.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay.
We're gonna take a break here, like 15-20 minutes. Like get up, stretch around, clear your brain, find a piano, find a practice room, take a walk, whatever you do to make that happen. But make sure you're back here at like 10:50 because we might even start a few minutes early for Brendan if everybody's back.
Start earlier and then have a longer lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
So maybe try to be back here in the next 15 minutes, 10:45, and we'll maybe start a few minutes early then. Cool.
Hello.
Are you playing on the trumpet? Yes. Oh, fun.
Fun. I haven't played piano for a while. Or I never had to piano as a kid.
Ah, wow.
Oh,
Oh, did you fix that? I left one piano at Luke's house if you want to try it. But then I will probably take it back soon because it needs to work.
How many did you bring?
I brought 7 pianos and 2 chord organs. So I want to talk a little bit about texture tomorrow and choosing ways to
So fun.
it's fun to see you start living with them when you have 60 of them in your living room. And help ask my husband what he thinks.
It's like my husband's guitar.
Yeah, it's
You were so professional. Yeah, we were all impressed.
Look, do you think it gets warmer if we walk in
Do you love that instrument, piano or piano?
I don't know either here, but we're not.
We might,
Oh, you got a fan?
if there's a breeze outside,
Awesome.
it would help, definitely.
Yeah, I will.
Oh, yeah, so are you, Janice.
It's one of those ones that I know by ear, but I've like never bothered to learn, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Take it away.
All right. Well, let's dive into things. So we're going to look at improvisation in ways that I hope a little different. So I know some of us know a lot about sort of historical improv, but for those that know less, when you think of improvisation in music, what genres do you think of right away? What's first in your head for improv? Jazz, blues. What else?
Baroque.
There we go, right? Baroque music has a lot of improv.
Free jazz or
Free jazz, do the Ornette Coleman thing. Yeah.
Music, but that's
Yeah.
quite jazz.
No, a lot of folk musics, right, from all over the world have a lot of different improv in it in different ways. Often, we don't always think about classical music right away. And I have my own personal theories for this. I have a few people on my blame list for why this happened, and we'll get into that as we sort of go through. But what we're going to do today in the next couple of days is we're sort of going to look at different eras in classical music and how improv kind of worked for keyboard music specifically. So we're going to start with the Baroque era. So again, when is the Baroque era? Yep.
18th century.
Hmm?
The 18th century.
Yep. And even a little bit earlier, right? So 1600-ish is usually a date that you see in textbooks. And then 1750. What happened in 1750? Why did they choose that date? This is your hints.
That were Mozart? Wait, no, not Mozart.
That's when Bach died, right? So he died in 1750. I want to be clear though, by the time Bach died, he was way out of fashion, like 30 years out of fashion when he was dead. His son, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, that was the good stuff, right? Very, very different than Bach. It was more what we call galant style. So Bach just today is the most famous, so they kind of just like chose the date pretty arbitrarily. And so we have all sorts of things like that. And I want to, let's do this. What does Baroque mean? Like, do we know the word? Yeah.
There's not chords.
Oh, yep, broken, right? What about Baroque, the style? Anyone know?
Ornamental.
Yeah, ornamental. So it comes from the Portuguese word barroco. And it was actually originally applied to Bach and people that sounded like him as an insult by people like his son and their friends. Most music history can be described as young people rebelling against old people and then etc. But it was meant as an insult. The music that Bach and earlier composers had written was considered over-ornamented, over-complex, couldn't hear the melody, wasn't particularly well liked by a lot of people. So it was actually an insult, which I always like. But it's that ornamentation that I think is really important. And so I'm going to do a couple things. We're going to see when people start to recognize this particular tune. When writing Baroque music, often what they did first is they just have a bass line, right? And then they would add things slowly. So this is the bass line for this piece. Very exciting. It's a scale. That's it. That's all it is. With a little cadence at the end. What's cadence? Everyone know what a cadence is? Anyone know? Yeah?
Musical punctuation?
Yeah, it's like a stopping place, right? You can all hear cadence. So if we have a, right? There's sort of a stopping place in the piece. there's another stopping place, right? And then at the end, you have a big stopping place. That's how we know music ends, right? So that's a cadence there. So we have the scale and a cadence. Then you could add things to it, right? So this particular one goes like this. Which is also very exciting. Anyone know what this is yet? Couple, right? But what did you hear? It's just triads, right? All they're doing is they're just harmonizing. They're adding notes to make these chords. Then you'd have the melody, and this will be the giveaway. But I'm gonna simplify it. Let's hear. We do that. Sorry. Probably to here. Right. Which is, I guess, okay. Right. But it's not that interesting. And so the ornamentation is what takes that sort of basic structure turns it into an actual song, right? This is the aria from the Goldberg Variations. Now, Bach wrote it all out, right, in this publication, but often it wasn't written out. And so if you were at the lunchtime concert I gave on Wednesday, the Sarabande, the slow movement, wait, now I've forgotten how it goes. I'm just gonna get the music because my brain is melted. So what's written for the first bit is this. That's what he wrote, right? And then what I did the second time, I should have charged my iPad apparently. Is I just added stuff, right? So we're gonna look at adding stuff first, right? Has anyone done this before when they do this? Yeah. If you ever play a piece from the Baroque era that has repeats, this is basically required. Again, if we look at C.P. Bach, he wrote, it's a very exciting title, The True Art of Keyboard Playing, this big long treatise. And in it he says, ornamentation is the soul of music. Basically, if you played music from that era and you don't ornament it, you have no soul. You are not hip, right? It'd be like if you're playing jazz and you don't improvise. You don't have to do it well, but if you just don't do it at all, you're not really playing jazz, right? Same with Baroque music. If you're not adding things, you're not really doing it, right? So what is an ornament? A decoration, right? Think of Christmas trees. Think of Halloween decorations, right? Those are ornaments. That's all it is. Yeah.
Something to add on to make it more beautiful?
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the word beautiful. So there's all sorts of rules. The more you dive into it, 17th century French sounds really different than 17th century parts of German. They're all totally different. But at the core of it, again, C.P. Bach in his treatise said you have to use good taste. Well, how do you know if it's good taste or not?
If it sounds good to you?
Yeah, if you like it, right? And especially when you're starting out doing this, just try stuff. You'll like some of it. Maybe you'll like it for 3 months, and then you'll decide you'll play it one day, and you're like, "Oh man, what was I thinking? That sounds terrible." Which is what's happened with this ornamentation. And so, like, there are lots of rules. You have to avoid certain things and whatever. We're not going to get into that because, like, one of the big books on this is by this guy named Robert Donington, and he has a short guide. It is this thick. The real one is this thick. I've not read the real one. I've read the short one. This one scares me. I'm not that into it to read this much. But we're going to just sort of look at some ornaments and sort of go through them. So I'm so glad that this was here today. We're going to use this. We're going to write down some types of ornaments, right? They have all sorts of symbols. So anyone who knows an ornament, just shout them out. What do we know? Trill. Mordant. We'll do that. Right? Suspensions. Yep.
No?
Yeah, right? The little squiggly thingy, broken chords, the arpeggiation symbol. Appoggiaturas, yeah. Often that's one of those scoops connected to something else.
Well, I actually don't know if it counts, but dynamics, if it counts.
I would say yes for Baroque music. So if you think of Bach's keyboard music, does anyone know how many times he used dynamic markings?
You?
Not 0, but you're close. Twice. There's one prelude and fugue, and then the second movement of his Italian concerto. But those were written for what instrument? It's not for piano. Those were written for, anyone know?
Violin?
Nope. Harpsichord. And what's different, many things are different, but one of them is that you have 2 manuals, right? Yeah.
Like instead of like hammers, you actually the harpsichord actually plugs in notes.
Yeah, exactly. When you hit, it's really simple to actually like fix a harpsichord because piano keys have like 80 moving parts in every key. They're really complicated. Our harpsichord is basically a stick, and when you push the stick, it shoots up something called a jack, and it just goes boop, and then it hits a different stick to stop it. That stick isn't there, and I've done this on my own harpsichord just for fun. If you play, you can actually make them like shoot up really high, and they just like fall out of the harpsichord. And that's basically what it is. It just plucks the string. So harpsichords can't really do dynamics. So what the Bach's telling you with the forte and piano he used is you have different keyboards, kind of like an organ if you've seen an organ before, right? So you'd have one that maybe is louder and one that's maybe softer. So you would switch what keyboard you're playing on. So I would definitely count dynamics in Baroque music as that because you do have to. If you're going to play it on the piano, my opinion is you should play it like a piano and use dynamics and pedal, but we'll don't have to get into that. What else do we know?
Gruppetto.
Hmm?
Gruppetto.
Hmm?
Gruppetto. Gruppetto.
Group pedal, which one is that? Oh, the turn.
Yeah.
I always call it this, yeah, right? So we have, right, little turn like that. Turn,
Oh, cool.
because it goes whee. Yeah. I don't know many of the fancy names. I just know,
I've seen.
yeah, yeah.
The German one.
Yes, there's all sorts of Germany. There's like fancy names for all sorts of this kind of stuff, right? And then there's, so I'll put it next to this one maybe. There's one that looks like that,
Yeah.
right? There's an upper mordant and a lower mordant, which means you go up or down. Very big difference.
So all
Right.
those symbols are on top of the notes, right?
Yeah, and so what people often see, and I'll show you this sort of the famous chart, but we're going to talk about the famous chart because it's not what people think it is. The famous one, and let's zoom in a little bit here, looks like this. So this one has, 13 different ones. So we've got trills, mordants, trill and mordant, what they call a cadence, which is our turn, right? A double cadence, there's an item, and then you just start combining them in different ways, right? These are the appoggiaturas. They're called Akzentsteigen and Akzentfallend in German. They're appoggiaturas, right? And then you can start sort of combining different things. And they each have these symbols.
Why doesn't the composer write the notes?
Which,
Why did the composer choose the symbol instead of the notes?
well, I don't actually know in particular. I know often it just wasn't in the score, right? So if you look at Baroque music, there are some ornaments, but mostly they're just not there at all, right? So you'd add your own. Yeah.
What's the difference between 6/8 and 13?
6, 8, and 13. So we have just some terminology. So the note that's written, that's called our principal note. That's the main one, right? Then you have what's called an upper auxiliary, which is above, and a lower auxiliary, which is below. And this, it's very subtle. It just changes the order. So this number 6 starts on the upper, and then goes down, and then trills. 7 starts on the lower, and goes to the lower twice, right? 13 has a longer, and then that. So you can mess with the rhythm, right? There's all sorts of different things you can do beyond just the notes. There's different things like that. This is found in a notebook, Wilhelm Friedmann's notebook by Johann Sebastian Bach. So people often thought that this was what Bach did. No. This was by some French composer, and Bach just wrote it in the notebook for his 6-year-old son to learn some ornaments. These are not the only ornaments that exist. You don't have to follow any of that, right? You can do your own thing. People get really caught up in this chart because it came from Bach, but he just put together some stuff for his kid to learn to play the harpsichord. You know.
Somehow the French, I think, were more detailed on how
And they have
done it.
so many more ornaments.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, you can make things sound German or French or Italian by how many ornaments you have as well. So Germans, the French and Germans, if you don't know, have not liked each other for a very long time. The Germans would accuse the French of being over-ornamented and having no taste, and the French would accuse the Germans of having no imagination because they don't know how to add ornaments properly. And there's like there's treatises where people are like, they call out people by name. So it's like, you know, if there's like diss tracks in hip hop, right? Where like, if you think of Drake and Lamar right now, every song they write is just making fun of each other. People did that in the 1600s through treatises. Yeah, exactly. It just took way longer because like you had to write it, and then it took like months to write and publish. And then it took sometimes years for it to go from Germany to France. And so it was just slower, you know. But it's the same kind of idea. So what I want to do, we'll keep this up here for right now. We're going to have a melody. Let's take, which melody should we use? Let's do this second movement here, because let's do a French suite maybe. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly jot down a melody, and then we're gonna add our own ornaments to it, and then we'll compare it to what Bach wrote. We'll see how we do. Let's do. And then do. And then I need one more thing here. Oops, that's not the right note. I can read music. All right, here's our first phrase. Question.
If you wanted to learn ornaments, where would you go?
Like what types there are? I would Google Baroque ornaments. That would be my first step.
Yeah, but wouldn't it come up with something like that?
Yep, this is the perfect starting place.
Okay.
We just have to remember that this is not the end. This is the start, right? So here's our melody. This is. From a saraband, so it's a slower dance, right? So let's add some ornaments. Where do you want where? Think of our chart, think of other things, think of dynamics. What should we try? And we're gonna do this by committee, so it's probably gonna sound interesting.
Item on the last note.
On the very last one, number 13 here.
A, yes.
Okay, so we'll do my little squiggle there. What else do we want?
Put a little turn on the C sharp, maybe a did.
The little turn here, maybe? Yeah.
That A seems kind of lonely about start.
It does seem a little lonely. What do we want there? Do a trill? It's just, it's different language. Yeah. What else do we want?
I would love a turn on that second measure.
A turn or
An ascending.
like an ascending line that you just did? So you'd want, yeah, so sort of a slide up. I'm just going to mark that with this. That's how I usually mark slides in my own music. What else do we want? Should we try that and then see if we need to add more? So here's our melody playing. And then, make sure I remember what an item is. Okay. So now we've got do we like it?
We add.
I don't know.
It's okay. I mean, it's your first go, right?
Could we add notes at the end?
Yeah, and the other thing is you can just add notes, right? So something, you could recompose parts of it. And if you look at, they're called doubles, but Bach published doubles of some pieces. And he just changed things and just, improvised on them. And it wasn't meant to be played exactly that way. It was a template for others to be like, that's what he did. I can do this too, right? It took me, 3 weeks to come up with ornamentation that I like, and I still change it every time I play it. I never quite know. I have stuff marked in, and I just, in the moment, change things or leave things out or add things, and mostly it works. Sometimes it sounds terrible.
Could
But-
you try 2 Fs at the end?
Where? Like here? Like add in a little harmony maybe?
Yeah.
So then the last measure would be,
Oh, dang.
right? It makes more sense if I add the harmony in, see if I remember our harmony. Wait. Sorry. So if you add in the bass line, it does have a little bit more motion to it, right?
That nice height, the E that you jumped up to really added to it.
Yeah, and so in that E, maybe you might, if you really want to make it florid, and then you would add stuff to your left hand, right? You don't want to just ornament your right hand, because if your right hand's the only one that you control with, you're in trouble as a pianist, like me. But that's sort of the idea, right? And so I would encourage you, especially if it has a repeat, but even if it doesn't, right, you can definitely add a bunch of things to it. And that's just the melody. So we're going to switch gears now because we're going to look at what's called figured bass. And so, okay, who here has seen figured bass in music before?
Is it just the bass line?
It has a bass line, but there's something else in there. All right, let's switch the question. Who here has seen a jazz chart that has like melody and then chord symbols? Yeah, a few more. So I want to show, let's look at a jazz chart first, just because these are a little bit more common. Well, where's my, oh, it's under fake books, I think. All right, let's pick a random tune. What do we got? Not that one. Carla Bley. There we go. Black Orpheus. Right? So this is our jazz chart, right? We have melody. What key am I in? That's all it is. And then we have these symbols, right? There's an A minor, B minor 7 flat 5, E7 flat 9, A minor. I should pick something easier. What's my flat 9? Right? And you have to sort of add in the harmony based on those symbols, right? This is not unique to jazz. There are lots of different types of music that do it, and figured bass is kind of the Baroque version of this, right? So we're going to look at what's called a trio sonata by Johann Sebastian Bach as an example. So first off, trio sonata, how many instruments do we think there are? 3, wrong. There's at least 3 or 4 usually, sometimes more. It's very confusing. Just roll with it. This is the keyboard part for this sonata that Bach wrote. This is his own handwriting. It's very hard to read. But we have a bass line. That's that first line that he wrote.
Why is it so fancy?
He was, this is writing on like fancy paper with like quill pen and yeah. And you'll notice like his bass clef looks kind of funky. It's mostly legible, but he was in a hurry. Bach wrote, an insane amount of music every single week. It was nuts. He has to write like a new 45-minute cantata every single week for like 15 years. That was a lot. But then there's these, it's really hard to make out what these numbers are. But if you look up here, do we see those there? That's telling us that there's more going on in the keyboard part than we might think, right? Those are the figured bass symbols. So kind of like how jazz charts have melody and then you have to supply the harmony, figured bass supplies the bass and then you have to supply the harmony because it's assuming there's another instrument playing the melody. Does that make sense so far? All right, we're going to switch to something that's a little easier to read to show the figured bass so you can actually see the numbers. So this is the score for this particular trio sonata for flute and violin. And so again, we have our bass line. Right, but now we can actually see the numbers that he wrote. They're a little bit more legible.
So that line for the continual is the only thing that the keyboard is doing?
This is the only thing. These are for flute and violin, and then this here is what the keyboard plays, but it's also what, if you have a viol da gamba or a cello, that's what they're playing as well. Everyone plays that, right? That's just sort of the thing. Yeah.
Wait, so in the jazz thing,
Yep.
it showed you chords that you were
Yep.
saying, but I don't see chords.
You do, you just don't know you do yet. So we're gonna go over this very briefly. So first, do we know what an interval is? Yeah, what's an interval?
It's a distance.
Yeah, it's a distance, right? And we can all count to 7. Yes?
Yeah.
I checked. Most musicians can only count to 4. That's all we really need. So 7 is a good one. And so what figured bass does is it tells you intervals. And you're just supposed to play those intervals above the note. So I'm going to just quickly sketch out 2 things here. So we've got triads and then 7th chords. So we've got that, and then we've got, make sure I do this right, 3, 6, and 4, 6. And then here, I'm going to write it all out first, and then we'll sort of simplify a little bit. And then we've got 3, 5, 6, and then 2, 4, 6. Okay. Numbers. Here we go. This is where it gets good. So we have triads. What's a triad? How many notes?
2. Wait.
3.
3. Triangle, right? Tricycle. So we have 3-note chord, then we have 7th chords, which have 4 notes. That's why there's 2 numbers and 3 numbers. So what this tells us is how we play triads. So if you pick any note on the piano, and I need a volunteer, so somebody come on up. All right, you're gonna play me a C on the piano. Doesn't matter which one. Pick any C. Perfect. And then if you add a note that's 3 above that, and then add a note that's 5 above the bass, so 5 above here.
Oh.
Yep. Play that all together? There's our triad, right? Now, if you start on C, so play C again. Now go up 3 notes again, but now go up 6 from the bass. Play that. Different chord, right? It's an A minor triad. Let's do one more. Play C.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, and then go up 4 notes, and then 6. Play that. That's a different harmony as well. Perfect. Thank you. So if you are playing figured bass, and you saw that at the bottom here, that's 3 different harmonies, right? C major chord, A minor chord, F major chord. That's what these numbers all tell us. And you do the same with 7th chords, because there's 3, right? You end up with the same different things. Now, if you're quick, let me put this back up, you have noticed that, first off, not every note has numbers, and there are different things. This only has 1 number, that has 1 number, this only has 2 numbers, right? And so we basically, you have to remember, at this time, music was handwritten, and it's really hard to handwrite everything. Literally, part of the reason continuo, the harpsichord, the bass, everything played that one line is because you only have to write that part out once instead of 3 times. Like, it just saved you time and money because everything was by hand. So they simplified, right? And so we just take out numbers for figured bass. And so what they ended up doing is that the 5-3 goes away completely. We don't need any of that. So if there's nothing, you assume a 5-3. This went away too, so if it's a 6, you assume there's a 6-3, and then 6-4. So what we've ended up with is nothing, 1 number, 2 numbers. So they're all different. And then the same thing here, get rid of the 5-3, get rid of the 3, and then this one they got rid of the 6. For reasons, who knows why, right? But those are the symbols that usually you see. Mm-hmm. Yep, but it's just like jazz charts, you know, you have to remember what is an E7 flat 9, right? It's that. You just get fast at it with practice, right? But it's the same idea. And so this then for a keyboard, and I have one more example here. This is a realization of that keyboard part. And so what you'll notice is here's our bass line again, right? Right, there's our bass line. And then the right hand in this realization plays the chords that the figured bass tells us. Sorry, should play the right notes. Sorry, I'm going to try again with the right notes. That's what the harpsichordist's job is. Yeah.
In jazz, at least in the charts, you play the chords with you. Are you playing it with the chords with your right hand?
It depends on the ensemble. So if you remember the pianist last night, right? When he was playing melody, he would harmonize everything, but he would do the melody usually up top, and then he'd play some stuff underneath. When the other people were playing melody, like it's the guitarist or the saxophone head melody, his voicing changed. He did a lot more what we call rootless voicings, things like that, where all of a sudden instead of playing that chord with both hands, he'd switch it up, you know, and he did a lot of soloing where he had kind of underneath the melody. So it depends on who you're playing with. If you're a harpsichordist as well, the thickness of your line might depend, are there one instruments, two instruments? Is it a flute playing way up high? Is it a lower instrument? Maybe it's a bassoon, then you want to get out of the way a little bit more maybe, right? There's sort of just changes depending whatever it is. And so then if you're playing this, and this is one that I played this fall, I had a week and a half to learn it. So I used the realization because I had a week and a half to learn it. But you don't have to do what's written. And I want to point out a couple things. So here and here, right? Both G's in the left hand, yes? Both 5/3s, G major chords. There's nothing in there that says that this G major chord and this G major chord have to be voiced that way, right? You can choose, right? There's complete freedom, which is kind of neat. Now, this is a slower piece, largo, right? So you might not want to do something if you're the harpsichordist to be like, you know, you might get a few weird looks depending on who you're playing with if you start going kind of bonkers with it. But that's the idea, and then you can ornament. So what I did do, even if I used the realization, I did add ornaments. And what did I do here? And then, so I would suspend and repeat things and sort of come up with different ornaments like that in addition to the figured bass. And this is really what Baroque music is, right? It's all about these sort of ornaments. What time is it? Perfect. Yeah.
So if you don't see the numbers, it's likely that someone went ahead and wrote that continual part throughout and made the realization for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. For most Baroque chamber ensembles, so not solo keyboard work so much, but for chamber, so anytime you're playing with somebody else, almost for sure the right-hand part is some editor in the 20th century who wrote them out for you, right? And even if it is by the composer, there's no reason you can't change it, right? First off, they're dead. They won't know, right? It'll be fine. But it is, you know, sort of expected. Yeah.
So with the 4 and the 2 and
Oops.
and under the notes, you're doing chords.
Yep. Chords in your right hand generally, because you need the bass line. Yeah. So you do have to play the bass line. You can ornament the bass
What
line.
about the top one?
Which one?
The
Like these ones?
no. Yeah, that.
This can be whatever you want, right? So
But
it just has to follow these symbols. Yep. Yep. So these symbols here are played up here. Yeah. It's a little confusing when you see it all written out like this, especially when you're first sort of seeing it that way.
You're seeing both there, right? You're seeing
Yep.
the numbers, but someone else already wrote the right hand for you. But
Yeah.
normally, whenever you see the right hand realized, they take out the numbers sometimes just so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
What is kind of a shame, because I think, you know, thinking about the numbers should be a cool responsibility of the performer, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I get why they realize it, because it makes it much more approachable for people. It's the same reason. This is always one of my favorite stories. This piece. Let me pull this up really quick. I'm sure people will recognize this if I can get the music. What? I was practicing it. Where'd it go? Here we go. Okay. Oh no, iPad, don't do this now. Okay. So this is a piece by Franz Schubert, if it ever loads. Oh, it's so slow. There we go. So, and if anyone has perfect pitch, don't spoil the surprise. Oh, my iPad just died, but whatever it is. You know, it's published in this key. Schubert wrote it in that key. This is G major. Key signature for G major is?
You guys know that.
G. We know G. Sorry.
G major has F sharp. Nice and easy, right? This key here, G flat major, has how many flats?
1.
Keep going. There's only 7 numbers. We'll eventually get there, so it's not 1. 6. Way easier to play something that has 1 sharp than 6 flats. So the publisher changed it during Schubert's lifetime without telling him. Schubert was unimpressed. But the idea is, like, you know, the realizations are there to make it easier for people, so you don't have to necessarily know how to do this. But improv was a huge part of Baroque music. And one of the best improvisers was Johann Sebastian Bach. There's a couple really good stories about him. One is there used to be like duels between keyboard players. This was like a fun little thing. And this guy came and he was going to duel Bach on the organ because they were both supposed to be great improvisers. And the story goes that Bach was warming up the day before in the church, and the guy walked by and heard Bach playing and improvising and was so intimidated that he just fled town. He just didn't show up. He just booked it.
Leaving the city is a lot.
Yeah, and like at that point, you either leave by like horse, carriage, or walking. Like this is not an easy job, right, to leave the city. And the other one is near the end of Bach's life, he visited the court of Frederick the Great, who was the ruler of Prussia, and Frederick the Great was an amateur flute player, right, amateur flautist, and he gave Bach a theme, and then asked Bach to improvise on it. And Bach, depending what legend you hear, there's a few different legends out there. He improvised a 3-voice fugue, so there's 3 different things going on all the time, no problem. And then depending on the story you believe, he could also do a 4-voice fugue, and then he did a 5-voice fugue. And then Frederick the Great asked for a 6-voice fugue. And at that point, Bach had to be like, whoa, I'm gonna have to go work on that. So he went home, which took like 3 months because he had to walk. And then wrote out a 6-voice fugue and mailed it back to Frederick the Great, right, as sort of like an apology. It became this piece called the Musical Offering. But at that time, every single serious musician studied what is called parlamento. And parlamento was this kind of like figured bass, but instead of accompanying somebody else, you were creating your own piece. And it was basically like rules for how you harmonize scales and things like that. So just as a really simple example, here's a really exciting bass line. I don't know why everything I'm doing today is in G major, but there's my thank you. It's very hard, right? And then you would have to learn how to harmonize it. And that would be what's called the rule of octaves. And you have to memorize all these different rules for that. And you have to going down and come up with these different harmonies like that. And then you have to use that to write pieces. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff you'd have to do. This is standard music education. Every single person learned how to improvise, which is always kind of fun. Parlamento gets complicated. I've just started. That's the extent of my skills, is I can do that one scale with those chords.
Cool.
Come back next year, maybe I'll be better. This is something I just started. I bought a textbook, which is how I do things. So maybe next year we can do more Parlamento. But that's the idea with Baroque improv. Any questions about anything? Yeah.
What was the six thing called?
Which one?
The thing that he made for the king.
Oh, the Musical Offering. It's a set of pieces. It's got fugues, it's got trio sonatas, it's got ricercares, a whole bunch of different pieces in it. It's like 45 minutes long to do it all, I think. And you need like other musicians. You can't play it all on keyboard. Yeah.
So as you're learning this new skill,
Mhm.
can you bring modern chords into your process, or do you have to like follow?
I do both. So I'll like try to, one thing I like doing is I'll take a chord progression from a Baroque thing, right, Bach and then I'll just sort of decide if I want it to sound Baroque or not, and then I try to sort of make it sound Baroque or not. So I might do, if I do like a 2-voice, and then I'll do maybe a sequence. And then I'll modulate, and I'll sort of build up from there, trying to sound Baroque, because for me it's way harder to sound Baroque than to sound fake bad jazz, which I can do. You know, you just add sevenths to all your chords. So if I did that same chord progression but added sevenths, then you get, maybe I do, and then it's really easy to sound like a bad jazz musician. For me, because I grew up with, if my dad's a jazz player, so I grew up hearing it and never practicing. So I'm just a bad jazz musician. But yeah, I would do both, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow too. We're going to look at classical era improv and sort of what that looked like. But the idea is you should just steal from anyone you like. So again, if I go back to the Sarabande, I listened to I don't know how many different recordings by keyboard players, by harpsichord players, and anytime I would sit there with my score, and anytime I heard an ornament I liked, I would just write it into my part really quick, and then I would go back and practice, and I just steal shamelessly from anyone that I liked and slowly piece it together, because you know, most people know more about things than I do, so I'm just gonna use that. That's the way you learn, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's a much nicer way of putting it than stealing.
Borrow without giving it back.
Borrowing, you know. Yeah. But, you know, the more you listen, you start picking up on stylistic things, and you can start changing how you want it to sound and everything like that. But, any other questions? No? Cool. All right, well, tomorrow is classical era. And then the third one, we're going to jump to the 20th, 21st century. So it gets pretty different. And then we'll rant about why the 19th century is not making an appearance. That'll be later. Okay. I think it's lunch. So.
Yes, a little.